Hello and welcome to another episode of the That Spurs podcast, where today we'll be looking ahead at our visit to Crystal Palace this weekend, coming off the back of that good win in the Europa League in midweek, making that 3 out of 3, and hopefully that win kind of will see us manage to stay in the top 8 of that competition and hopefully progress through to the next round. And obviously one of the biggest talking points from that game was obviously Mikey Moore's performance. And that obviously I think will give Ange a bit of a headache this weekend going into this game as to what he does. Does he potentially give Mikey Moore a start, or does he potentially still just be very careful with him and ease him in? But we'll get into that in a minute as to whether I think Ange will play him or whether he'll still take it, bide his time with him. So let's get into it. Obviously, we're coming up against Crystal Palace this weekend, who currently lie in 18th in the Premier League. And I think this is equaling their worst start since the sort of 92-93 season, if I'm right by memory. It's not been a very good start for Crystal Palace at all. But as we know, Selhurst Park is never an easy place to go, and a ground that we've kind of come unstuck at more than once. Last season, we managed to win there. But again, that was a tight game. And I think that was a sort of game that if there'd been 10 minutes more on the clock, I'm not so sure whether we probably would have come away with the win and possibly just a point. But this season, they're a very different side, Palace. And as I say, laying in 18th. Their form over the last 5 games hasn't been great at all. Obviously, they've won 1, drawn 1, but then lost 3 on the bounce. And I think one of the biggest problems that Palace suffer from, and it's been something I think which has dogged them over a number of years now, is the goals they score and the fact that they don't really have a really what you call prolific or consistent striker up front. And that seems to be what's possibly dogging them again this season. When we look, they've scored only 3 goals so far out of their 8 games. That is a pretty poor return. And they've also conceded 11. So you would like to think, looking at that, we've got a chance to score goals, and we know we can score goals, so that's encouraging. And we also know that they're not exactly brilliant up top, but as we know, with the way that Spurs play, they will get chances. It's just whether they're prolific to take those. And looking at the stats, you'd have to say that you don't think they're actually going to be that prolific. And the sort of side that, again, a bit like in midweek, I think you can give up some chances and probably expect that Palace won't have that killer instinct to kind of take those chances. But obviously, as I said earlier, it's still not a game you can just go into writing Palace off, because at some point that will turn around. Because when we look at their key players, they've got Eze, they've got Wharton, who I'm not sure whether he'll play. He's coming back from injury, and Palace are unsure whether they're going to send him for an operation as yet. They've got Gay. They've also brought in Nketiah in the summer, which I didn't think was a great signing from Arsenal, because he never looked prolific there. And I don't think that was the sort of striker that Palace needed. And yeah, when you look apart from that, you kind of, they've got Mateta, but he hasn't kind of hit that vein of form that he had towards the end of last season. And I do kind of wonder with Palace whether the rumours around Eze in the summer and obviously Gay possibly going to Newcastle, whether that's really hampered their start to the season. And obviously a big loss for them was Anderson, the centre half, probably more than Elise. Obviously they lost Elise as well to Bayern. You can't odds that when a team like Bayern come in as Palace, you're not going to be able to hold on to him. You would have thought that keeping Eze would have helped them, but I just wonder whether the kind of upheaval in the summer all round has kind of had a knock-on effect, and that's what we're seeing at the start of this season. But they do have some danger men, so we can't take them lightly, as I say. When we look at it from a Spurs point of view, really good run out against West Ham in the last game. Some of that was down to our intensity and the way we played, and some of that obviously was a West Ham team that were just diabolical at the back. But you still got to score the goals, and you've still got to beat those teams. Then obviously in midweek, we get a good win. Again, not convincing, and I think ultimately it just kind of does show that Spurs do lack that killer instinct up top. And again, AZ had a few opportunities that we're going to give up every game and could easily have scored. They did create some really good chances. Poku, the wide man, was terrorising Gray all game. But we know there's going to be some changes from that. We did make a lot of changes. And this is the way I think we'll line up at the weekend. I think it'll be Vicario in goal, Porro obviously at right back, Romero and Van der Ven back together, and Doggy on the left. I think we'll stick with this midfield three of Maddison, Bissouma and Kulusevski. Johnson, I think, comes in. Solanke obviously comes in. I don't think Ange will start more in this game. Again, I think maybe away from home, he might feel that this is a game that he maybe doesn't want to risk Mikey Moore in. So I think we'll actually see Odebert come back in after his injury. He came on the other night, and I think we'll probably see him start there, and Mikey Moore will just be saved and possibly brought on later in the game as an impact sub, depending on how the game's going. Yes, Richie scored in the week. I don't see him knocking Solanke out of that spot. I think Solanke is Ange's main man, so he'll keep his place. And obviously Son is unavailable this weekend, and we will have to be careful with how we ease him back into the game. But I think this will be the team that we start the game with. This will be a tight game. As I say, Selhurst Park is not a nice ground to go to. Their fans are always up for it. You have to give their supporters credit. They always make a lot of noise, and they've always been vocal. And if they get some momentum going, you just don't know the way this game could go. And this will be a good test of Spurs, because I think this is the sort of ground we've gone to in the past where you've kind of seen that if the momentum goes against us, we kind of shrivel and don't kind of match that intensity. So it will all depend how we start the game. If we start the game the way we did against Brighton and take it to them, and the way we finished the West Ham game, I see us edging this game. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Spurs. I just think we'll have too much firepower for them. And as I say, I don't think Palace have got the forwards that even if we give up chances, they'll punish us for. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Spurs win. I think Solanke will score. I think Kulusevski will score. And then I would say I think Maddison may get on the score sheet this weekend. So if we do get the win, that would be a really good win. Palace, difficult to go to though. So as I say, it will all depend how we start the game. If we start the game confidently, then I'll be confident. If we don't look like we're matching the intensity that they'll be in the ground, then I'll be worried. But I think we've got enough about us to see this one over the line. So yeah, 3-1 win. Let me know what you think. Also, please, if you could do us a favour of just hitting the like button and hitting the subscribe button. We're trying to get ourselves up to as many followers as possible. We'll be back Monday with Dan as we review the Palace game and either see what went right or what maybe didn't go right. As always, come on you Spurs, and let's get a good win away at Palace.